On a chilly autumn morning, Jonathan Roumie, known for portraying Jesus in The Chosen and respected for his faith and humility, never imagined that a simple act of kindness would change his life forever. While quietly shopping in a peaceful neighborhood supermarket, away from cameras and spotlights, he heard a child's voice that froze him. It was a little girl, Lily Collins, desperately asking if she could pay for the milk later. Her younger brother was sick at home, waiting. The raw honesty in that girl's voice struck Jonathan deeply. At that moment, he made a decision that would change both their lives. Little did he know that by helping that small family, he would also open his own eyes to a truth long buried. Success and recognition will never replace what truly matters. The crisp autumn air bit at the skin, while gray clouds filled the sky, casting a somber mood over the city. It was the kind of morning most would rather curl up under warm blankets than venture out into the biting cold. But not everyone had that luxury. Inside the neighborhood supermarket, the few customers present moved slowly, as if the cold had frozen their very movements. The place was nearly empty, except for a few hurried shoppers trying to escape the howling wind outside. Then Lily entered, alone, just 5 years old. Her steps were soft, almost inaudible against the cold floor. She wore a faded blue coat, clearly too large for her small frame, probably handed down from someone else. Her brown hair was tied into two crooked braids, as if made by small, inexperienced hands, perhaps her own. She walked with determination, ignoring the colorful candy shelves that usually attract children her age. Her gaze was fixed on a single thing. When she spotted the carton of milk, a brief flash of light shone in her eyes. She stood on tiptoes, grabbed a small box, and held it to her chest like a treasure. Then she walked to the checkout. Only one register was open, manned by a tired clerk with deep dark circles under her eyes and gray hair pulled into a tight bun. At the front of the line stood a tall man wearing a dark overcoat. It was Jonathan Roumie, 50 years old, discreet, with the look of someone who had spent years trying to live with purpose, but whose eyes carried the melancholy of someone who had also felt the weight of loneliness. Lily stood quietly behind him, holding the carton with both hands. She was so silent that Jonathan didn't even notice her presence until the clerk finished ringing up his items. "Your total is $42.17, the clerk said emotionlessly. Jonathan began reaching for his wallet when little Lily stepped forward. Her voice was surprisingly clear for such a young child, breaking the morning silence. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, raising the milk carton. "Can I pay later? My little brother is sick at home." The clerk looked at her, a mix of surprise and discomfort on her face. "I'm sorry, dear. We can't do that. Do you have the money?" Lily swallowed hard, her eyes fixed on the carton. "Not now, but I promise I'll pay. My mom said she'll get money soon." There was something in her voice, a rare balance between desperation and dignity, that made Jonathan stop. He turned and for the first time truly noticed her. Such a small child carrying such heavy burdens, a child who shouldn't be alone in a world demanding so much from her. "My brother is only 2 years old," Lily continued, now almost whispering. "He's had a fever since yesterday." The clerk sighed, torn between store policy and the compassion she felt. "I'm really sorry, dear, but I can't." She didn't finish the sentence. Jonathan's voice interrupted her, firmer than he expected. "I'll pay for it." The words came out before he could think. Lily blinked, surprised. Her big brown eyes met his, full of confusion. She hadn't asked for help. She hadn't even noticed him until that moment. But there he was, offering exactly what she needed. "You don't have to," she murmured, pride spilling over despite the need. "Can I come back later?" Jonathan crouched down to her level. Up close, he saw the freckles on her nose, the slight trembling of her lips as she tried to stay strong. "It's okay," he said gently. "Sometimes we all need a little help. And when you can, help someone else, all right?" Lily looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher the sincerity behind his words. Then slowly she nodded. "I promise," she said, with the seriousness of someone who had just made a solemn vow. Jonathan paid for the milk and handed the carton to her. Lily held it tightly, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. "Thank you," she whispered. "My brother will get better now." Before Jonathan could say anything else, She ran out of the store, disappearing into the cold morning. He stood there for a moment, a strange mixture of emotions swirling inside him. Something had changed, something he hadn't felt in years. A simple gesture had shown him that the true impact of our actions goes beyond what we can see. "That was a beautiful thing you did," the clerk commented, breaking the silence. "There aren't many kids like her around here. Life is tough in this neighborhood." Jonathan nodded, distracted. He was still thinking about the girl. "Do you know her?" he asked. The clerk shrugged. "I've seen her a few times, always alone. I think they live in that old building on Lincoln Street, the one they're going to tear down." Jonathan fell silent. He knew that building. He had passed by it many times, watching its decay, but now it meant something completely different. Now it meant Lily and Lily's world. Without saying another word, Jonathan left the store, but he couldn't stop thinking about her. He drove home in silence, weighed down by a decision he didn't even realize he was making. After all, what was a simple carton of milk to him? Almost nothing. But to Lily, it was everything. When he arrived at his luxury apartment, Jonathan sat inside his car for a long time, staring blankly into space. The pale, determined face of Lily kept appearing in his mind. Those big, serious eyes, the promise she had made, and the quiet strength she carried in her small body. So, something hit him. For the first time in a long while, he realized he was tired of his own life, tired of the emptiness, tired of the loneliness that had become a companion since success. Maybe it was time to do something different. Maybe it was time to change. What do you think made Jonathan decide to help Lily? Was it just the kindness in her voice, or something deeper? The next morning, Jonathan Roumie still couldn't get the image of Lily out of his mind. Her big brown eyes, her calm voice, the promise she had made. Everything echoed repeatedly in his thoughts. What was in that brief encounter that caused such an impact on him? The simple act of paying for a carton of milk awakened something dormant inside him, something he had buried a long time ago. He couldn't just forget her. He couldn't let her return to that rundown building on Lincoln Street, the same street he had crossed so many times without noticing. Now it became a symbol of everything he had left behind in his pursuit of recognition, fame, and stability. His mind went back to his own childhood, memories of feeling hungry, of feeling abandoned. He understood the weight of having to rely on the kindness of strangers. But Lily wasn't asking for anything. She didn't even trust. She just kept going, steady, even with so little. Jonathan's life had always revolved around building things: career, opportunities, recognition, moments of faith shared with the world. But amidst all that, he realized he had built nothing that truly mattered, nothing that made him feel whole. Sitting in his modern office overlooking the city of Los Angeles, everything seemed cold. The view, which once symbolized victory, now sounded empty. He knew what he had to do. He needed to go back. He needed to find her. He needed to make sure she was all right. Jonathan drove through the city streets, crossing luxurious neighborhoods, mansions, and expensive cars. His world, a world of privileges, now seemed so distant. He was heading to a place he had never been before, a place where people had no choices, where survival was the only priority. When he arrived at the building on Lincoln Street, his heart sank. The building looked abandoned for years, broken windows, peeling paint, a silent testimony to the harshness of life for those who lived there. And yet Lily and her mother, Catherine Carter, were still there, still holding on, still fighting. Jonathan parked the car a few blocks away. He didn't want to draw attention. He didn't want to look like a rich man trying to do a good deed to feel better. He wanted to blend in, be just another human being trying to understand and help. He walked to the building and saw a group of people gathered in front. Workers, elderly, children, all moving quickly to escape the biting cold. Among them, Jonathan saw Lily. She stood on the corner, holding a small package against her chest. Her expression was one of quiet determination. She was alone. Jonathan approached cautiously, not wanting to scare her. When she saw him, she looked surprised. Her eyes narrowed for a moment, as if trying to recognize him. Then a spark of understanding appeared in her gaze. You are the man from the store," she said with the same unexpected maturity for someone so young. Jonathan smiled kindly and crouched down to be at her level. He could see the signs of exhaustion on her face. The weight on her little body wasn't just from the bag she carried. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Lily nodded, but her eyes betrayed her. "I'm okay. I just came to check on my mother. She's sick, and she's not getting better." Jonathan felt a pang of guilt. He knew she carried a heavy burden, but seeing it up close made everything even more real. "Can I help with anything?" he asked, wanting to offer more than empty words. Lily hesitated. "We don't need charity," she said, looking away. Pride was stronger than her need, but Jonathan could see the effort she made to maintain that wall. "I'm not offering charity," he said, firmer than he intended. "I just want to help your mother. She needs medical care, right?" Lily's eyes briefly glanced toward the building. "We went to the emergency room. They said it was just a cold. But I don't think it's just that. My brother Samuel is getting worse too." Jonathan felt his heart tighten. He knew he couldn't wait. "Where is your mother?" "Inside," Lily answered, pointing to the entrance. "I'll take you to her." Jonathan followed her, smelling the mold and heavy air of the dark hallway. The building seemed on the verge of collapse, but Lily walked naturally, as if she knew every crack on the walls, as if she had learned to live with the decay, with the pain. They arrived at apartment 407. Lily knocked gently before opening the door. Inside, Catherine Carter was sitting on the sofa. Her face was pale, tired. She had clearly been sick for a long time, but when she saw Jonathan, her eyes narrowed, suspicious. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse, marked by her illness. "I'm Jonathan Roumie," he introduced himself, keeping his tone calm. I know who you are," she interrupted him, with a piercing look. "What do you want?" "I'm here because of Lily," he said, looking at the little girl next to her. "She needs help. You both need help." Catherine said nothing for a moment. She looked at Lily, who was still standing there, still holding her small package, with an uncertain face. Finally, Catherine nodded. "I don't know what kind of help you're offering, but we don't have many options." Her voice carried a mix of pride and desperation. Jonathan noticed how hard it was for Catherine to accept help, but he also saw the exhaustion in her eyes. She needed medical care, and Lily did too, and little Samuel, Lily's little brother. He knew if something wasn't done soon, everything would only get worse. "I have a friend who is a doctor," Jonathan said, trying to keep a reassuring tone. "I can get medical care for you, and you won't have to worry about the bills." Catherine remained silent for a long moment, then spoke again in a whisper. "You don't have to do that. We don't want to owe anything to anyone." Jonathan stepped closer, his voice soft but firm. "This isn't about owing, it's about helping. Let me do this for Lily, and for Samuel. You've already done so much for them." Catherine seemed to hesitate for a moment before nodding her head. "All right," she finally said, her voice tinged with resignation. "But only if you promise you won't just disappear afterward. I need to know you're not here just for a charity project." Jonathan smiled gently. "I'm not going anywhere," he promised. Days later. Jonathan Roumie sat silently atop his apartment in Los Angeles, watching the city below. His life had been full of commitments, recordings, glamorous events, interviews, and faith. A career built with dedication, humility, and purpose. But for the first time in years, the view from above felt empty. His mind wasn't on his next script or Hollywood invitations. His thoughts were consumed by Lily, Catherine, and little Samuel. He had tried to ignore that restlessness in his chest, that urgency to change their lives. But the more he thought about it, the more he realized it was they who had already changed his. Jonathan had devoted years to his artistic calling, spreading faith and hope through his characters, especially playing Jesus in The Chosen. But now he felt called to something quieter, more intimate, more real, caring for a family he barely knew, yet who somehow made him feel whole. The decision wasn't easy. There were international invitations, advertising campaigns, and an offer to film in Israel. But none of those opportunities seemed right. When he looked at Lily, a girl who had promised herself to help others even when she had almost nothing, he understood. Success without purpose is empty. Lily taught him something he never imagined learning: how to be human again. She was just a child, but carried the weight of the world on her small shoulders. She had a wisdom in her eyes Jonathan envied, and a strength he admired. She didn't want a gift, she just wanted a chance. And then, as if guided by something greater, Jonathan found himself driving down the same streets he used to pass without looking around. Lincoln Street, where Lily, Catherine, and Samuel lived. As hard as he remembered, but today it felt like the place he needed to be. When he arrived at the building, Jonathan didn't waste time. He was determined. He would do more than just extend a hand. They needed a new life, and he had the means, and now the willing heart, to give it to them. He climbed the stairs with steady steps, knocked on the door. Catherine greeted him with a tired smile, eyes full of uncertainty. But there was something new there too: hope. Yet this time, Jonathan Roumie wasn't there to offer charity. He was there to make a real difference. "I've been thinking," Jonathan began, his voice firm and full of purpose. "I can't just offer medical care and walk away. Lily, Samuel, you deserve more than that. You deserve comfort. You deserve a chance to live without worrying every day." Catherine stepped back. Her exhaustion was visible in the way she moved. "We've never had that comfortable life," she replied with a tired sigh. "I don't even know what that means anymore." "That's exactly why I'm here," Jonathan said, his eyes softened by empathy. "I want to help you rebuild. I'm not here to give temporary relief. Lily deserves a future where she doesn't have to carry the weight of the world alone on her shoulders." Catherine hesitated. She looked at Lily, who remained quiet by her side, watching the two with an intensity far beyond her age. Jonathan could see Catherine struggled with pride, with the fear of relying on someone. But Jonathan wasn't asking her to be dependent. He was offering partnership. "I can help you move to a safe place, enroll Lily in a good school, and ensure Samuel gets the medical care he needs," Jonathan continued. "This isn't charity, Catherine. It's a chance to start over, to give Lily and Samuel the life they deserve." After a long pause, Catherine slowly nodded. "I can't promise I won't worry," she confessed honestly. "It's hard for me to accept help, especially from a stranger. But I'll try. For Lily." For Samuel, Jonathan smiled. For him, it wasn't about promises, but actions. And he was ready to prove he meant it. The following days were a whirlwind of phone calls, paperwork, and organization. Jonathan found a small apartment for Catherine, Lily, and Samuel in a safer neighborhood. He arranged a medical consultation for Samuel, and Lily was enrolled in one of the best schools in the area, with the best resources he could find. Jonathan didn't want to just put a bandage on an open wound. He wanted to change the entire course of that family's life. As the new home took shape, Lily and Catherine began to open up more. Slowly, they started trusting Jonathan, and even if in small steps, he could sense the barrier beginning to fall. For the first time, they were living without the constant threat of eviction or illnesses hanging over their heads. Jonathan felt a deep satisfaction being part of this transformation. One night, after everything was finally settled, he went to visit the new apartment. He found Lily and Samuel sitting on the living room floor, building a tower with colorful blocks. Catherine was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Her face, for the first time, looked light, calm, at peace. "Hey, Jonathan!" Lily shouted with a huge smile. "Look, I'm building the tallest tower ever." She proudly showed him the structure which, although shaky, symbolized something much bigger than a child's game. It was hope rebuilt. Jonathan crouched beside her. "I think you have a future as an architect, Lily." She laughed, stacking the blocks carefully. "Maybe," she replied with a slight shrug, but there was a spark in the girl's eyes, a light that hadn't been there before. Catherine came with a plate of food and sat next to Jonathan. "Thank you," she said in an almost whispered tone. "I know I may not have said it enough, but you really changed everything for us." Jonathan smiled. His heart overflowed. "You changed my life too. I never realized how empty I was, until now. Thank you for letting me be a part of this." For the first time in many years, Jonathan did not feel alone. He felt that he had finally found what he had always been searching for, a purpose that didn't involve fame or applause, but love, connection, and commitment. This story is a reminder of the power of compassion. It shows how small acts of kindness can change entire lives. Jonathan Rumie's decision to help Lily and her family teaches us that true success is not in wealth, but in the positive impact we have on others. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is our time and our care. Helping someone rise again when everything seems lost is an act of love that transforms the world, one heart at a time. If you enjoyed this story, hit the like button, share it with someone, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? Let's spread more stories like this together.